I will call this housekeeping and my curiosity. I looked at analytics and said that my subscribers are United States, over 65 years old, and no females. I don't know what to make of that, but that's what curiosity is about. It'd be best if I describe my thinking as metaphysics or meta vision, meta eye, dynamic eye. And what I mean is when you look at the eye as a control system, you'll see it exactly the way it is. And the correlation of the equation with the data is about 0.97. Of course, that doesn't mean anything to any person who's medical. And this obviously started from curiosity, pure curiosity. I just wondered, did evolution design eyes as dynamic control systems, the meta-eye concept? And I realized I would conflict with official medicine, medical beliefs, and that whole schmear. And I don't like it. I don't like to conflict with optometrists. They live in a world that's different than my world, and that's okay. What got to me was after submariners, and I thought, okay, submarines, everything moves inward, the eyes, refraction change from plus to minus, and the submariner can't see more than about 2050. And it seemed obvious to me that the eye is a control system. All other things ignored, that's a control system. So, and that curiosity, just Christmas family, I think in Columbus, Ohio, and I'd gotten Rafelson's phone number, and my father and I drove over and talked to him. And I wonder, was he a fraud? What is Rafelson? And what is he doing? He's 91 years old. And what makes him think this way? And it became clear that he had the meta dynamic eye concept. But as an optometrist, he couldn't practice it. He was not an engineer, but he had an intuitive science concept. And so he's taught optometry. And when you're taught optometry, you don't turn around and go back on optometry. That's the one thing you can never do. And that's why no optometrist can sport any aspect of prevention. You can't go against your profession you've been taught. So that blocks almost everything. I accept that. I'm not going to argue with an optometrist about anything, unless you accept the goal is intellectual understanding about the eye as dynamic, as an engineer. So then I posted the ophthalmologist, I guess, and he did what all kids do. He was doing this, and his refraction changes from plus to minus, which always happens. And of course, he goes to an optical shop, and they show him a minus lens, prescribe a minus lens, because his eyes have errors, defective errors, and he calls it a disease. Thinking, not disease. It's a negative refractive state for the completely normal eye, in my language. And I said, oh, yeah, I understand your medicine, and you have people pouring to your office and expecting to be fixed with a minus lens, and you can't do anything else. You're absolved of any responsibility because you couldn't do anything anyway. So I see that, and this is why it's hopeless. It really is. But as I see this, and 8-year-old kid and he gets a minus lens. Oh, everything's sharp. It's wonderful. That's science. That is pure science. Don't question pure science, whatever you do. Medicine, I know what pure science is. Don't argue with me. So he wants to not keep it at 20/50, let's say. No, because he got a minus lens and he's going to go down. And anybody gets the minus lens, it goes down half diopter per year, uniform, all normalized across the world. So he doesn't think it's possible to, at 20/50, slowly work your way up. Because using a plus lens for near does not compute in the medical mind. They say, oh, you can't fix a camera by using a plus for reading and checking your own Snellen and slowly getting your refractive state to change from slight minus to positive. Can't do it. If you suggested doing this for the Naval Academy, they would quash it because they say, won't work. We know it won't work, and we won't let you do it because it might work. That's the type of reaction you get. Jake Steiner says, I reset. Well, my reset is cataract surgery got me to 20/60. And as I was, after I left Rafelson, I think, what about my sister's kids? And they all have 20/20. They didn't do what I did. Bright kids, they play tennis as I did. So I'm sure they're mystified by what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, but that's normal science. So that's basically where we stand. You put a minus lens on an ophthalmologist to be an ophthalmologist, and you can't argue with him. I can only see getting out, going from 20/60 or so, doing it myself. Remember, legally, I am responsible for what I'm doing. No one medical is taking responsibility for what I'm doing. I don't care what they think. They're my eyes. If I'm taking a risk by doing everything myself, then that's who I am. And yeah, okay, it's very possible that after cataract surgery, I might have stayed at 20/60. So I gambled, but I had nothing to lose. So the result was that, well, 15 years ago, I started using the plus, the Snellens you see. So I know what lines I read. And I said, engineers, certainly, I'm gifted. I can measure a control system. And my eyes are control systems, both of them. Quite good, quite accurate. So when I talk to an engineer, I ask them to really measure your eyes as a control system, whether you measure it positive or negative. After cataract surgery, and I found I had a range of accommodation of 2 diopters objectively. And that's with a fixed lens. I have technically no accommodation, but the entire eye does. So 2 diopters, that means I read the tri-chart at 20/20 with some buffer, hyperopic reserve. And I can read reasonably well at 20 inches. And I find out my old habits of reading hasn't changed. I like to read at 10 inches. So I'm sitting there with a cell phone with 4 diopters on to prevent myself from entering nearsightedness again. Because my eyes are dynamic control systems, not failures. So this is going on for the last 12 years, 15 years. I don't think a medical person can help you. I think it's beyond their capability, or it goes against the training, or the public has no interest. I talked to my sister about it, and she's basically saying that, yeah, I needed glasses, no problem, fine. And that's the difference between brother and sister. We even talked about the fact that I did this as a kid. And guys, I read Mike's encyclopedia doing that. I paid a price. And I don't blame anything. It's hard. Parents can't realize how much their kid is creating his myopia by doing that. In fact, Rupa Wong has the same problem. She can't do anything except for her own children. And just keep the kid at 20 inches, 15 will prevent it. But only Rupa will know that. Now she measures her kids' eyes using a LensStar, I believe it's called, device, measures length for cataract surgery. Pardon me. And I use just test lenses because I don't use a retinoscope on myself. It's kind of not necessary because I measure everything objectively because nobody cares. I care. And I know how to do it. And I know the consequences if I don't do it. So I'll probably send this to my relatives. They're like, oh, it's 2020. Why do you want to bother me with prevention? Type of thinking. So same way with Kaysa Villikari. She's a little different. She was doing her best. So that's where we stand. That's my audience. Incredible. 65 years, no females in the United States. I don't know whether that means anything or not, nor do I care. So I can see at the Naval Academy how something like this could work, but have to be electrical engineers who know the statistics that once they go below 0 diopters or amblyopia, they'll go down by 1 diopter in 4 years. And faced with that truth, that fact, what would I do if I were just 20, 30 and I wanted a career in aviation and I was an electrical engineer designing control systems and I would make all refractive state measurements myself? Could I get myself back out of it to go from minus a half diopter to plus a half a diopter? That is an open question. I cannot answer it. I never had a chance to talk to anybody. But since I've done it myself, I call that the second opinion, but only at 2050 or so. So add your own thoughts. I enjoy doing this. Analysis, I wonder what would happen if, I wonder if that would work. I wonder if an equation, I could find an equation for all fundamental eyes from birth. The meta-dynamic eye concept, where you accept it and you try and prove it that way. Add your own commentaries, and thanks for visiting, I guess, my American friends and over 65. And thanks for being here. I've really enjoyed this. Many friends doing this. Thank you.